I'm Mark Anthony Turno, author of Maldine, Cyberdawn, Spectre Flatland of a Hive, and I'm here with another writing tip. Today's writing tip concerns weather. Now, if you're writing an epic that spans the globe of whatever epic, fantasy or sci-fi world you have created, sooner or later the subject of weather comes up. And the weather can figure a lot in your plot sometimes. And if you do indeed have an entire world to deal with, or at least most of one that matters, then it's not just enough to start sprinkling random storms around. For world to be real and the reader to buy into the fact that this place could indeed be something out there, then you have to at least have something plausible. A general idea of at least, where all the weather patterns are conjured up from. Now, best way to start is with a comparison to Earth's own weather patterns, and then just extrapolate from there. Excuse me. Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. And then just extrapolate from there. If a world has just a single basic terrain and climate type, then things are easy. Dune, for instance, is a desert planet, so there's going to be lots of hot and dry days, cold nights, and some pretty vicious windstorms. A water planet, for instance, like, say, Earthsea, it's going to have a lot of turbulent seas, gales, hurricanes, whatever. And while a jungle world, on the other hand, is going to be rife with heat, humidity, and a whole lot of insects. And if you don't think swarms of insects can be a part of the weather, go to the Florida Everglades sometime. But for a more varied world, then things get a bit complicated, but not overly so. All you have to do is break the world down into different regions, such as here there's desert, here our sea, there's our forest, whatever, and then treat each such region individually. And of course, after that, things can get a little bit complicated as other things interact. For instance, moons. If your world has moons, it's going to affect the weather. Earth's one moon affects it a lot. Now imagine a planet that has multiple moons. Say, on my own world of Maldine, it has 3 moons, each of quite different sizes. And I take that into account on how the weather patterns, can be so chaotic. So multiple moons can shift the weather patterns and ocean waves in all sorts of ways. Storms can become both more numerous and more violent. Got a high gravity world, sort of like Maldine, then that does wonders for keeping a storm like the Great Red Spot in place for a good long while. So the extra gravity can also affect the weather pattern. In the case of Maldine, there's something called funnel storms. If you take into account the way they're written, take into account not only Maldine's moons but the excessive gravity, then suddenly the funnel storms become a frightening possibility. And the more, again, if it seems plausible and real, then the more real the background of the world is, the more the reader buys into the story. Or in a fantasy world, you can have areas of intense magic that can also affect the local weather. I have that too in my books. In general, just break it down into components. First, figure out how the moons affect things, then the gravity, magic, and each other thing in turn. The best way is to first take the things that you definitely want in the world and map those out, and then figure out the weather patterns that you need to be around them to cause all this. So as a start, say you need to figure what would be causing these predetermined climates, what their sources might be, and then how that in turn would affect other terrain types that you also have looking about your world. Sort of, you start with the basics and bootstrap your way up an element at a time until the whole thing is complete. Example, say you have a continent where its west coast is always being pelted by storms coming down from the northwest. And that could either mean that there's a jet stream weaving its way around various other landmasses, or perhaps there's a small island continent further out west that's causing all the storms to go around it and in the direction that you want pelting the continent. Such a constant stream of storms would also affect trade routes, as ships would have to sail a bit more southward to avoid the storms, and that, of course, could affect your plot. Say if the character is on board a ship and they have to get someplace in time, and there's a decision, the only way, the captain says only one direct route is through the worst storm belt in the area, and if they're that desperate, well, that gets a bit more attention to the scene, and you get to have more excuses of stuff to have them go through. On my world of Maldine, I have several instances in which predefined weather areas definitely affect the plot. On the equator, for instance, that's where the majority of the funnel storms are going to be. So because of that, the only ships that are usually brave enough to try crossing the equator are the large ones, and that's why I have sleeves on the world. Because you want these large, super stable ships to be the ones to cross your equator, because they're the only ones that can make it through that wide storm belt. So that's a simple example of how local weather patterns can affect your plot, how the world is designed, and everything else. Now, you don't need to get things down into an exact science. Real-life weather science is far from exact, but just enough to keep everything plausible and give you an excuse to have in there other sorts of different weather you have. And again, when you start with the types of weather that you want, evolve from there to whatever is needed to create those weather patterns, and then you can use that to sort of go, well, if this is happening, therefore here's the other elements in the world that would affect. Read as like things like where the big trade ports are, types of ocean-going craft or something that they might need to go through there. It could have just a bad local weather pattern could affect an entire local culture, and that adds a bit of realism to your world. Anyway, this has been another writing tip. Come back for more later on. Same channel, same everything. See all the links, and keep reading.